Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So you remember the video we had on the 7.3 with the stuck accessories that we covered, removing stuck bolts and frozen bolts and everything like that? Well, that's this engine. Now, I bought this engine technically out of a junkyard. I bought this one and another one, so I bought them as a pair. So this one was the second one I got to. The first one is sitting out. It's all wrapped up in plastic because it was halfway decent, but we kind of got it to this point and left it. So it spun over, but the oil pan was smashed up in. So I think the pickup tube or the oil pan is contacting the crank. This one ran, the other one ran. They've just been damaged moving them around. So no surprise, the guy had them under a lean-to, so to speak, and which was still out in the weather. It was just a roof, so it didn't get direct rain, but it was still out in the elements. So when you buy a 7.3 from pretty much anywhere, you always have to be mindful of how it was stored. Now, storing a 7.3 outside is never ideal. In fact, it's never ideal for any engine, even if you were to tarp it, put it under plastic, whatever. It's never ideal, because no matter what you do, that water's still going to get in that engine. The only proper way to store an engine is inside, climate controlled, in a bag, and the bag, you have to have everything oiled, so it can't be raw steel anywhere. And even at that point, you still need to inspect it and check it every so often and make sure that there's no corrosion happening. However, this engine here, you can see that the injectors are out of it, and we stripped all of the excess material off. So that would be any brackets that didn't need to be on here. We cleaned the valley out a little bit just to make it less dirty, because we're going to be flipping this thing over eventually. So pulled that out, pulled all the dirt, pulled the boots off the intakes. The intakes are junk. Pulled the pedestal off, and basically just kind of cleaned it up to where we don't have to worry about too much extra stuff on here. But got it all ready for you to see, and we're going to find out if this thing's locked up or not. I have a pretty good inclination that it's locked up, so we're going to see if it is actually locked up. And I'm hoping it's not, but pretty sure that it is. So we're going to find out. So we're going to go ahead and put a ratchet on this bolt, and yeah, we're just tightening the nut, or the bolt rather. It's not even trying to move. No, just loosen up the bolt. So in this scenario here, we are, I think we're going to flip this thing over and pop the oil pan off and see what we got going on in the bottom end. So I've covered removing oil pans before, but we'll see how this one comes off. I know that this is the factory oil pan because it still has the sticker on the oil pan about oil filters. That's usually the OE oil pan that has that plastic sticker, and it's Super Duty only for some reason. But we also covered removing intake or the exhaust manifolds and the oil cooler. We did that in other videos. So we used the method that I had shown in that video about cutting the manifolds off and getting the bolts out. Works like butter every time. It's just a little time consuming, but it works every time. So we're going to flip this guy over and see what's lurking in this oil pan. That's far enough for now. We'll let whatever's in this engine drain out, which looks like a little bit of everything. Don't need these ending up in the cylinder heads. And now we're going to see if we can get this oil pan off without too much of a fight. Obviously not worried about saving this oil pan. So I'm just going to probably destroy it getting off of there. Oh, this is a prime example of RTV failure. So this oil pan looks like it's been leaking for some time. And the fact that I can just pop this guy off of here like this definitely reinforces that. Actually doesn't look that bad. So it doesn't look too bad in here realistically. Obviously you can see some grime there, and it looks like the pickup is a little domed there for some reason. It's got a little dent in it, but it's not all rusted up. So that's a good thing. So at this point, I would say that the cylinders are basically the issue here. Probably the rings are stuck and it does not want to come off of there. So now that we got this oil pan off of here, you can see that we had, the failure here, and you can see the telltale signs of that with the oil residue that ran up the block here. So the oil pan gasket, which is RTV, has just failed over the past 20 some odd years. So that's not a surprise. It's not uncommon. So that would be why this oil pan came off so easily. And yeah, I didn't do any prep to get that off of there. So that's interesting. But well, we're going to roll this thing back over and let's see if we can get these heads off and find out what's going on inside this engine. But before we do that, I want to show you something down here. See how that O-ring adapter is pushed out away from the oil pan? So that is your typical oil adapter, oil dipstick adapter failure. What it does is the O-rings swell up there and actually deform the adapter there. There's no good way to fix that other than replacing the whole unit or doing a weld in or doing a new bolt in like the Sinister diesel one. That's the only solution for this problem. If you do a new OE bolt-in style like this one here, it's just going to do that again over time. So those things are trash, and I don't advise using those. But we're going to looking inside this oil pan. You can see a lot of just grime. What that is unbeknownst to me. There was a lot of water in the oil pan, and I was fully expecting the bottom of this engine to be rust, but it's definitely all grimy. So somebody never did take care of the oil in this engine. So engine oil changes are a must in a 7.3. These things rely heavily on oil, more than your typical other diesel engine other than like a 6-liter. But yeah, we're going to flip this guy over and see what we got on the top. I went ahead and threw the oil pan back on here, just put 2 bolts in it. And the only reason I did that was if the upper end of this is still pretty good, I'm going to go ahead and probably leave the oil pan on. But we will see what we come up with up here. So if the block checks out good, may just throw the heads back on it just to seal it up a little bit better, and try to throw it outside and bag it up or whatever. But if we get in here and it's all pitted up in the cylinders, then block's going to be junk, and we'll pull the timing cover off and pull the pieces and parts out and set it out for scrap. But one way to find out for sure, and that's to pull the head. So you can get away with pulling this head off without pulling any of these rockers off. But I'm going to pull them off, and I just don't want them to get broke. These are notorious for breaking, and it's just going to remove a lot of extra pieces and parts. These heads are heavy enough as it is, so we'll just remove excess weight. So with this thing being so dry of oil for so long, the lifters are no longer pumped up, but there's a little bit of pressure on this one. Yeah, and there wasn't much at all. So with that done, we can go ahead and pull all these rockers off of here and the push rods. Not concerned about where these go because it doesn't matter right now.
You can see how much corrosion's on this push rod. So some of these are going to end up in the trash. If not all of them.
Yeah, that one wants to drain some more. So we'll work on getting these bolts out, and we'll see how easy this head comes off. So naturally, the injector hold down bolts are holding us up here. So we got to pull those out real quick to get these top 4 head bolts. Yeah, that guy's mostly drained out of there. So the one thing I do recommend doing is taking out the glow plugs. And the only reason I say that is because it'll keep the head from sitting flat. And it's also something for you to get caught on. So these outside head bolts, they're going to go in the scrap pile because they're a little bit rusty. And I have tons of these head bolts, so they don't need to be here. So that's all the head bolts here. There's a couple more injector bolts that are floating around in here. These look like they're OEM as well. We'll set those down in here. And now we can go ahead and pop this head off. The joys of this are, this is usually glued on here really well. So we'll see how these are going to come off. So we got the head loose there, and I don't feel like really picking this up. So I'm going to grab some bolts here that are long enough to go inside here, and we'll use the new cherry picker to pull these off with. So what I do is I use the existing holes in the head. So these heads are universal left to right. So you have the same holes in the front as you do in the rear. So the accessory mounting bolts are good for these heads. So put it in the back, put it in the front, and it may not pick up perfectly square, but it'll pick up. And we got a nice little strap here. So we'll get this head pulled off of here and see what's underneath. This is what you call being lazy. So inside here, we have a good looking block with not too much corrosion. So that's a plus. Looks like maybe the rings are just frozen up in the block here on this side. So what we're going to do here is, I think we're going to go ahead and put the head back on. Just put a couple bolts in it just to keep it sealed up. If any damage is done, it's already been done. So let me show this to you and show you the worst of it. So over here you can see that this cylinder has some corrosion in it. We'll see if we can wipe it out. This one doesn't look horrid. This one's obviously all the way up, so you can't really tell. And this one's about the same as the other two. Don't really know how good these are. That's pretty bad. It's a little bit worse than I thought. So this block, yeah, I'm going to go with this block's probably trash. There's a lot of pitting in this cylinder. So don't really think we're going to be able to save this block. Don't know if there's enough in these. I know you can bore these out 20, 30, 40. I don't know if you can do them 50. So not real sure if that's going to be savable or not. Might have to make a phone call and ask somebody. But I'm thinking that this thing's probably trash. Sucks though, because this is a better block out of all of them. And you can see that we have a little bit of corrosion down in here and not too bad on the other ones. So I think we'll go ahead and pull the other head off and see what we're going to come up with. As far as the head goes, yeah, we've definitely got some corrosion on this head. Looks like some slag on there for some reason. The valves don't look bad on this engine block or this head, but might be able to be cleaned up with some decking. But it's at least a usable head if somebody were to need one. Give it a quick deck and cleaning and should be usable. A little bit of corrosion up here on the sides, but definitely not the worst I've seen. These heads are definitely still in usable shape with some loving care. But let's get the other side off and see what we come up with. So the same order as business as the other side, we're going to go ahead and remove all these rockers. And then also the injector hold downs. So there's actually oil in these ones, but they still have a bunch of corrosion on them, so they're probably going to end up in the trash. No point in introducing contaminants into your engine and reusing crappy push rods if you're going to be doing that. So while we wait for these push rods to lose a little bit of oil in them, we'll go ahead and take the glow plugs out. Which is much easier to do without anything in the way. So following the same order as business as the other side, we're going to go ahead and get these bolts off of here. And you can see on this side, the way this engine's facing, these are pretty crusty on this side also. So we're going to definitely get rid of these outside rows. And we'll throw the other ones in the box here and put them with the other 5-gallon bucket of head bolts that I have. So we'll get this head off. I missed a push rod. So we'll get rid of these bolts now. Oily. So we got all the head bolts out of here, and now we're going to go ahead and pop this head off and set it on the ground, and hopefully this side of the engine looks a little bit better, but I guess it really doesn't matter now, does it? So we'll get our bolts that we use in the front and back here, get the strap on this, and we'll get this head off and set on the ground. So seeing this side of the block, I can definitely tell why it's locked up now. Yeah, this engine is going to be hosed, I'm pretty sure now that I see what's in here. So we got, yeah, don't know what that is, but it's definitely not good. So you can see we have the corrosion here, a little corrosion here, and well, yeah, I don't even know what to call all of this, but it looks like sand. But this one's all the way up, so we can't really inspect it. But down in there doesn't look bad, but definitely a lot of no good over here. I'm not even going to say that that's fixable, because we're talking thousandths that you can bore these out. We're not talking like a 1/4 of an inch. So yep, I'd say this block's junk. So we're going to go ahead and finish tearing it down. So now we're going to go ahead, like I said, we're going to finish tearing this down. But the only thing I'm really concerned about getting off of this before it goes outside is that timing cover. So we're going to go ahead and flip this guy back over. Make a big mess, I'm sure. This is why you can't have nice stuff whenever you're working on 7.3s. They just make a mess. So we'll pull this oil pan back off of here and start getting this timing cover off. So got the oil pan back off here. We're going to go ahead and take this pickup tube off. We've got 2 bolts in the front here, and a bolt in the back. So with the pickup tube off, go ahead and start getting this front timing cover off. Just a bunch of 10mm bolts. Pull this bolt back out of here because it's going to be in the way. Now I did thread some of these back in when I put the water pump, when I took the water pump off, so just going to make sure that those are loose. There it is. So right now the only thing holding this cover on is some RTV, and you can see it's still on there pretty good. So there's RTV all the way around, and I think it's up here as well. I have a video on putting a timing cover on, so I'm just going to pull some of these bolts out of here and make sure that they're not going to be in the way, because we don't really want to drop them in any oil. And we're going to go ahead and try to get this cover off. Now the idea here is to not break the cover. So it's easiest to just stick a bar down in and give it a little bit of a pry, and it'll pop right off of there. So we have our timing cover here, and you can see inside here we have our gaskets, and there's a gasket over here, but all this is RTV on the top and on the sides here. The cam still looks good, the crank still looks good, so probably end up just pulling this all apart and pitching the block, and probably trying to maybe save the rods. So if these are PMR rods, they're junk. If they're forged rods, then they're worth a little bit of money. But yeah, to me, this engine's pretty much shot, because it's going to cost just as much to fix it as it would be to rebuild whatever you have. So it may be a good core for somebody looking to send back an engine, but they may take one look at it and say this thing's trash. So we'll probably finish pulling some extra stuff off of this at another time. Right now, we'd have to pull the lifters and everything out to get the cam out, and I don't even know if it's worth pulling it all apart. It might just be worth just sending it like it is to the scrapyard, because nobody wants the stuff, and I can't have too much of this stuff laying around. So, but sadly, this engine is not going to be savable for us, and that kind of sucks, because I was hoping it would be. So went ahead and showed you what you'll end up with if sometimes you buy a Junkyard 7.3. You know, there's no guarantees whenever you're buying a used engine, so you're kind of taking a gamble, and the gamble didn't pay off for me on this engine. I'm hoping that it'll pay off for me on the other engine, and hopefully we'll have a good usable engine. So thanks for watching, guys, and hopefully this will show you what to look for when you're buying a Junkyard 7.3. So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll catch you on the next one.